Hello everyone, Shinto Bean here discussing some more Warhammer combat cards, and in this video I'm going to be taking a look at some of the best and most popular warlords in the game as of early 2022. These are based off of the statistics released by one of the developers, MadEmp, and he has done this a few times where he's listed the top and bottom 5 warlords in these categories. So we don't have a full list of all the warlords, there'll be a lot of them missing from this one, but this at least provides some interesting insight into how the warlords are performing. Of course, every time there's a balance pass that affects warlords, this can really shift the performance of the warlords. But as of right now, let's go ahead and take a look at which ones are on top. So, starting with the highest win rate, and this is based off of the player win rate, so not AI controlled decks, but player controlled decks here. Overall in the game, and this is over the course of, I think, over like 1 million matches or so, maybe, within a month's span. The number 1 warlord is, unsurprisingly, Inquisitor Greyfax. Ever since her release, she's been very strong, and she's now been slightly nerfed several times, but still a very powerful warlord, and also definitely a really fun one to play as, because you can use really any combination of bodyguards, and as long as you have a lot of points left over, you can get some really big buffs on those bodyguards. A lot of fun to use. Coming in second is the Jackal Alphys. She's a Tyranid warlord, ranged specialist, and her special rule is maybe not as strong as some of the other ranged warlords like Badruck or Lieutenant Tomaron, but the thing that makes the Jackal Alpha special is her trait, Deadshot, which allows you to lock onto the enemy warlord and focus all your fire into it, which can make for a very strong endgame. So it's good to see that she is doing well there. In third place is the newest Tau warlord, Shazo Ralai, who has another very powerful special rule which takes effect right from the very first turn. It guarantees the increase in firepower of all your ranged units on the first 2 turns, and then after that increases their defensive capabilities. So really powerful special rule, and the warlord itself has solid stats, so definitely a strong option there. Coming in fourth is the Turvagon. Now this one, as you'll see later, is performing very well in Terra, but I think it's also a very strong warlord for beginners. Just having that infinite supply of Termagants just makes it able to compete with much stronger opponents and still come out victorious. I think especially for newer players who have very weak bodyguards, the Turvagon can be a very solid option. And then fifth place, Nemosaur Zandrik, whose special rule has 2 parts. The part that buffs the ranged or melee attack at random doesn't really seem very strong, but his ability to summon an extra unit with taunt, and also to basically deploy the warlord twice, results in a pretty strong combo. So he's definitely a solid warlord overall. Now looking at the highest win rates within Terra, we can see that some of these warlords are the same as above, which means that overall they're just really strong, I think. But in first place is actually the Orc warlord Mazarog Scragbad, who is the newest Orc warlord, and he combos really well with the big melee berserkers. Every time one of your melee units attacks, it gets a percentage boost to its health. So just pretty fun special rule. I do enjoy playing as him. I haven't played him a huge amount, but I feel like the options with him are pretty limited, but it seems that he is quite strong. I'm actually surprised that he made it to the first place in Terra, but there you go. Coming in second is, again, the Turvagon. Third place is Greyfax, and fourth place is the Jackal Alphys. I'm actually surprised that she's doing that well within Terra. But because, I mean, one of the things that kind of surprises me about this is that the Tyranids don't really have the best selection of ranged units, I think, when compared to other factions. They don't really have as many options, but apparently they're good enough for the Jackal Alphys to be in the top 5 on both of these lists. And then in 5th place, this was a real surprise, the Psychomancer. I was not expecting this thing to do very well. As for the cards in my own collection, I don't really have some of the key cards at a high enough level for it to really be truly competitive, and I'm surprised that it has made it this far up in Terra. But one thing that these statistics don't actually tell us is how many players or how many matches were actually played. So there may be actually a lower percentage of people actually playing as the Psychomancer, but they just are really good players who have, max level cards. So let me know what you think about these stats here and the Warlords, and if you're surprised by any of these, the ones that came in the top 5. Now moving on, let's look at the other extreme and look at the lowest win rate. So in 37th place is the Corpse Lord, and this is the overall win rate out of all the matches played. The Corpse Lord, this is not surprising because it's actually just kind of has a pretty terrible special rule, and I'm kind of hoping they change it in the near future. Same goes with Abaddon. His special rule only starts activating when he's on the field, so it's really just pretty weak compared to many of the other Warlords. Galaga Throx is in 39th place. Again, his special rule, he has the potential to be quite good against builds that have just a few powerful units, but since I think most decks these days have quite a few bodyguards, they can kind of avoid the debuffs from Galaga Throx. Helbrecht is the newest Space Marine Warlord, and he had a pretty rocky start, and even after they significantly buffed his special rule to, well, do what it was supposed to do originally, he's still not really the best option. I think his special rule is just a little bit situational. And then in last place, the Mask has a very situational special rule, which doesn't do anything most of the time. So I think a lot of players would really struggle to use the Mask effectively. If you have a few certain key cards, the Mask can potentially be quite strong. But again, most players are not going to have those cards in their collection. Now, looking at the lowest win rate in Terra, we do have a few repeat offenders. The Mask is down in the bottom 5. Logan Grimnar, this is kind of surprising. He did actually get buffed recently, but apparently he is not doing so well in Terra. But I think the change to shields may actually change that, because Logan is potentially able to do quite a bit of damage with his melee attack, so with the nerf to shields he may have a little bit easier time in the future. Watch Captain Artemis, I know in the past he has been a pretty popular one in Terra. He used to be quite strong, I think, but it seems that players are now able to get around his rule. His special rule, I think, is just not really that great, just because it's random. You have no control over where that damage goes. And then again, Helbrecht is second to last, and Abaddon is in dead last. Alright, now moving on to the most played Warlords. This is overall in the game. In first place, unsurprisingly, Captain Akron. He is the Warlord that you start off with in the game, and his special rule used to be very weak, but now it's one of the strongest ones, and it's quite easy to use. You can use pretty much any combination of bodyguards, and he is plenty strong. And second place, Captain Badruck, another pretty easy to use Warlord with a very powerful special rule that can combo for crazy amounts of damage. At the lower levels, I think it's harder to use him if you don't have those orc bodyguards that have a really high ranged attack, but once you get them, it's pretty simple. Same goes with Tolmaron. His special rule is quite strong, and you just have to deploy your big ranged units first, and then you can deal insane amounts of damage. Zephyr Blade, another pretty simple special rule that gradually increases the ranged attack of your units. And then finally, Skulltaker has another fun special rule, which can decapitate low health enemies with your melee attack. So all of these Warlords have a pretty straightforward special rule that's pretty easy to use. as long as you have the right type of bodyguard. So not surprising that they are the most popular warlords. Now as for the warlords that are used most within Terra, there are a few of the same ones that appear here: Badruck, Akron, and Tomron. Greyfax, of course, being one of the most powerful warlords in the game. It's not surprising that she is a good option in Terra. And then Darkstrider is actually first place this season in terms of pick rate, which was kind of surprising. His special rule is kind of similar to Badruck, but not quite as good. But Tau do have some pretty insanely powerful ranged units. So I think I was looking at the statistics for the season before this, and I don't remember seeing Darkstrider in the top 5 for that, so not sure what prompted his sudden surge in popularity. But again, we don't actually have specific percentages here either, so there may not be a big difference in the percentages for these. So maybe with each season, one warlord might be just slightly more popular, but then the next season it just goes back down. I actually read something really surprising. Going back to the win rates, apparently the Corpse Lord, which is one of the weakest Necron warlords, was actually in 6th place in terms of win rate within Terra, which is kind of shocking to me. I'm not sure how that's even possible, but yeah, who knows. Now going to the lowest pick rate overall, so these are the least popular warlords in the game. We've got Helbrecht in 37th place. Again, with his rocky start, I think a lot of players are just turned off by how badly he was doing, so not surprising there. Shazo Relay, I guess, being a newer warlord, a lot of players just don't have him in their collection. So even though he's actually performing really well, he does have a pretty low play rate, as you can see. Lelith Hesperax is a warlord who is probably more for advanced players. I think beginners would have a difficult time with her. She's been out for a while now, but apparently she's not too popular overall. Morven Val is another relatively new warlord with a pretty straightforward special rule that just reduces the incoming damage to your units. And last season, I think she actually was coming in like 5th place for win rates, which I found surprising. I really haven't played as her very much, so I'm not sure, but again, she does have a pretty straightforward special rule there. And then finally, in last place is the Mask, and again, that is pretty unsurprising considering how situational her special rule is. And then finally, the final statistic we'll look at here is the lowest pick rate or lowest play rate within Terra. And again, these are warlords who have fairly weak special rules or are just kind of overshadowed by other warlords in the same faction, like Galaga Throx. He's just not really that amazing when compared to the other orc warlords. His furious charge and the damage that he can deal when deploying can be entirely stopped by shields, at least previously. Now with the change to shields, he might perform slightly better, but still probably not the best warlord. Then we got Helbrecht, Magos Dominus, who again is kind of really overshadowed by almost any other Servants of the Emperor warlord. The Mask, and then Morven Val is in last place in terms of play rate. So there you have it. Those are the statistics for this latest season. Let me know what you think, and if there were any things in here that surprised you. Again, we are missing a lot of statistics here, so you can't draw too many conclusions. But let me know if there's any more information about specific warlords you'd like to know. I'm thinking of uploading some new videos just featuring certain deck builds that I like to use with warlords. I may separate it by faction, so if you're interested in that, let me know. But that's it for this one. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.